All right, we're live. So I am Joshua Kemble. Hopefully you can hear me okay. I am going to be working on two stories, book two, which is the sequel to my first graphic novel, which came out this year, called Two Stories, Book One, which is a memoir that grapples with questions of faith, mental illness, depravity, and ultimately redemption in a fallen world. And right now it's on sale on Amazon Prime for a pretty ridiculously low amount. I think it was like a little over $5, which is crazy because it took me about 5 years to create. But what's pretty awesome is with Prime, spending a little over what you'd spend on like a cup of coffee, you can pick up that book. So if you haven't yet, now is a good time. I can't guarantee that price will be the same if you're rewatching this after the fact, but yeah, so that's the case. It's a super late night stream on a Wednesday, so we'll see if anybody shows up. But I'm pretty excited because yesterday I was just completely exhausted and just not really ready to work on anything, honestly. And so today, just to get to the art table took me a long time. To get to working out took me a while. And so I managed to get my workout in. And now I'm working on comics, which is what I needed to do. And for me, even if I'm in like a bit of a rut creatively, the first step of like sitting down and working is like absolutely essential. But yeah, I mean, things got busy at my work, a lot of excuses, all that kind of stuff. But I'm glad to be back working on my comic because I missed a day. And I hate missing days. It's silly, I think, to people who don't work creatively on their own projects, but like for me, even though I work in creative all day, it's like if I miss a day creatively, I take it pretty seriously, because of the fact that a day can really quickly become a week, can really quickly become a year. And so trying to stay focused, trying to stay positive and progressive and move forward and get my comic done. So that's what I'm going to do. So that's what I'll be working on. Right now, what you see on the screen is page 127. And as usual, when I start these things, what I'm going to do is basically clip out the different panels, usually in 3 rows. In this case, I might just grab like that middle one. Oh my goodness. Yeah, I might grab that little one. Let me make sure this cord, I hope this doesn't make a ton of noise. I just realized there's a cord that I had to move on my mic, because otherwise every time I go to do shortcut keys, you guys are going to hear some pretty crazy stuff. Okay, so here we go. Cut, and then paste. And we're at the starting point, which is, like I said, again, I'm really excited about because I don't know what kind of exhaustion, I don't know whether it's summer or whatever it is, but like, yeah, I definitely was feeling creatively dead yesterday. So it's nice to be back. Daily habits, I think, for artists are like really important, and writers, because if you get out of the flow, it's just really hard to get anything done. So at least for me, the way I'm wired, it helps a lot to just show up every day. Part of why I do these live streams too is just to hold myself accountable. So even if it's like one person viewing what I'm doing, it's a way for me to have to do the work and be accountable to do the work. And the second I go live, I'd feel pretty weird if I'm not working on my stuff, particularly because I don't prep for these shows. So it's like, that is half the content. And then, obviously other stuff will just come up. But in general, this is like an art hangout where we hopefully get work done and get comics done. So yeah. There's one other thing that I'd like to do. I don't know why I feel like I have like a frog in my throat or something today. But let's see here. And Corey's here. Corey, feel free to hop on, although you may not be able to with the kid and all. I'm planning on a short one tonight. I'm planning on it being maybe an hour, maybe an hour and a half. See how far I can go. I also realized this. One thing I've realized about these streams is like quite often I'll stream the entire way through working on a page. And what I need to start realizing is it's okay to like cut the stream like before I'm finished. But at the same time, like I like to do them as I do the work. And I do think that's pretty cool for anybody who's like watching to be able to see the final result, even though these are roughs, you know. Probably too detailed of roughs, but whatever. Oh, and then there's one other thing. And then Corey was saying, I'm planning on a short one is Josh's code for I'll be here for 4.5 hours. Yeah, that could be the case. There is a book that I've been reading by Lawrence Wright, who is the guy who wrote Going Clear. And it's called The Plague Year. And it's really surreal because I love Lawrence Wright's writing. But it's super surreal to read. Somebody who tends to write journalistic novels. So they're like novels that are really super researched. And he's done ones on like different terrorist movements, on like an expose on the Church of Scientology. He writes a lot of like articles and stuff as well. But he's just an excellent writer. And he's written some fiction too, but I think in general, he's like known for his journalistic writing. I like his writing style, but it's so weird to read a book that's sort of pinpointing and documenting the whole pandemic from a very well researched perspective. But it's just weird because it's like we literally lived through it. So that's been an interesting thing. Other than that, just like, yeah, like, I don't know why, but for the last day or two, just getting to the work has felt like such a slog. It's very, very surprising to me. Okay, so I want to, I'm trying to reflect pages from the first chapter, if I can, on layouts. And I think I'm going to do just that. But I wanted to pick a page. So that's what I've been doing because I do need to be working as well while I'm streaming. How's everything going, Corey? I hope everything's going okay. How's that crazy music video treating you? Corey's been working on this really crazy animation for a client. And it's coming out so cool. But animation's a hard job. All right. I also am having a blackberry dippa from Bravery Brewing, which is like a local brewery out here in the Antelope Valley that I really like. And just seemed like the right time. Corey said, good, lots of client feedback today. Well, feedback's always good, or in theory should be good, because it'll get you closer to that goal. Let's see here. This is going to be, okay. So I almost need to get rid of this previous panel and just kind of look at that. So we're going to do like right about here. Swoop. And that looks about right. It's probably a little too high. And I like it a little thinner there. Okay, I'm going to see if this layout will work with the text. So far, I've had a lot of luck with these, with this reflecting back thing with the layouts, but at some point, I may hit like a block with it, and it may not happen. And then Corey said, should be finishing up in the next couple weeks. I've got a backlog of client work waiting in the wings. Whew. Well, that's a good thing. It's funny though. It always seems like let's see. I feel like saying something about abundance, but it seems like there are definitely like seasons with art that I find have like happened throughout my entire career, where you'll have these sort of spells where you have a ton of time to work on your own creative projects, and then sometimes you just have like a million client projects, and it's kind of weird because I always like want to find like a perfect medium, and my entire time doing it, there's never been a perfect medium. My wife's in the thick of it too, because she's been just getting job after job after job, and we feel really fortunate because it's like it's helping us financially too that she's doing, you know, these books. But it's also super exhausting, and I think there's definitely days where I think she might not necessarily feel like working on kids' books for a client, you know. But it's like it's one of those things where when you're building your business or you're working for clients and stuff, it's just like there is a sense of feast and famine. And so as that stuff's coming in, like it's crazy. And then Corey said, I haven't done any of my own stuff in 2021 yet. I feel like you have. Am I wrong? I feel like you, let's see, Endo Exo, didn't that come out in 2021? I feel like Endo Exo, Journey Poo, was that all 2020? I feel like that. No, I think that's your mind playing tricks on you. I think it's been about a month from what I remember, but my sense of time is really off though, so I could be wrong. Am I wrong, Corey? Have you been on this for like months? It feels like it's only been like a month or two. Let's see. Oh, Jim's thing started the year. Holy crap. So just time goes really quick. But like, I thought you did Journey Poo during Jim's thing? No? I don't know. I feel like you've done something, but maybe I'm being crazy. Client work, then music video, then shirts. Oh, okay. You got it like is that the next thing is a shirt gig? Because shirts, what about the screen printing and the Wacom thing was kind of personal work, but you're right. Yeah, it has mostly been. Huh. Well, I don't want to quiz you, Corey. Corey was saying, I'll go look. I'm not sure. I don't want to distract you, man. Enjoy your night. Let's just stick with what you said, because I have no idea, dude. I also, like I said, time is a very strange little monster. Okay, so let's see here. Valuable enough to him is what it's going to say here. And I think the last set of panels was like showing stars. Shirts, billboards, etc. Is that for the same client that you did the billboards for? Kind of curious. So I'm just writing this line really quick. Nice. So that old client's back with, they want more mural animations, etc. I need 5 of me. You probably might need 5 of you, man. You need to look at the human genome, the code, and then just come up with a way to convince your messenger RNA to self-replicate yourself. That was me trying to sound like I have any minor comprehension of how genes work. So yeah, it's been surreal reading that book about this last year because, like I said, it's a very like well-written book, and I feel like it's not very like partisan or anything like that. It's just sort of laying out like this is the pandemic year, you know, this is like how it happened. This is where the first cases were introduced. This is like how they got into like different states, and then like how pretty much everybody like across party lines like botched their response. And then it's like you kind of see a little bit under the hood of like all the different scientists that are working on like just this crazy crisis, and like some of them have worked on crises before that had to do with like viral outbreaks. A lot of them came from like working on like the AIDS epidemic in the 80s. And it's just like this super fascinating look and window into, like, it even gets into like sort of a little bit of the history of vaccines in the US and like how different pandemic responses have been in the past. And then it's just like bullet pointed as the spread just got worse and worse in the US. And it's so weird. Like I said, it's just weird to read one of my favorite writers who's a really good historical writer. He's very like just on point with stuff, and like um strangely like doesn't take a crazy viewpoint. Like I think that's what makes his work so powerful. He tends to just sort of objectively state kind of what happened. And I mean, I definitely think he everybody's got like a viewpoint and stuff, but it's just weird. It's been weird to read and be like, oh wow, we've lived through that, you know? Like it's it just kind of makes me realize like my son's gonna probably be asking questions about like this last year as he gets older, you know, because it's just such a weird event to have lived through, you know. And I got away relatively okay from the whole thing, but it's just it's been really interesting. Okay, so I need to think of like what I can think of. I need to think of what I can think of. It's a profound statement, if I've ever made one. That was definitely not self-counseling logic there, saying I need to think of what I can think of. It's definitely a smart, intelligent statement. Okay, so that's cool though. That's cool, Corey. That means you have happy clients. You are a victim of your own success, or I think that speaks well though, Corey, because if you weren't doing good work for those clients, they wouldn't be coming back. And so that's a good sign. That's a whole thing. But I would say, like, that's something a lot of people don't keep in mind. I remember when my wife and I had to get new phones, and we had like these hard salespeople. A lot of them are like younger, newer salespeople. Her just pressing hard for the win in the sale. And I remember, like, during that whole experience, we had one sales guy who was just super honest with us, and potentially lost that initial sale. But the weird thing is, because of his honesty and his actual customer service, like, I have a suspicion that he'll probably get our business in the future. And it's like, I think a lot of people don't think that way, even when they're doing art or illustration. It's like, you're not making an investment for, well, sometimes you are, but in general, you're not just going for a client that you're only going to work for once. You're building relationships. And so it's like, you want happy clients. And if you get happy clients, then they come back, and then it becomes this sustainable thing, which is, I mean, that's the nature of business. It's all built on relationships. And I think that's a cool thing. And Corey definitely gets that, but it is something I think, like, is valuable for, like, people getting into this whole thing. Ah, okay. So you did do one, though. I'm glad you looked into it, Corey. So we were both kind of right. Because there's like, yeah. So that's not bad, man. I'll be lucky if I have a finished product in a year, by the end of the year. But we'll have to see. What would I use here? What I use here for imagery? So I've gone to this. Should I stick with? Let me see what I used on the page I'm reflecting. Actually, that's not bad. Could almost reflect that. Yeah, I was gonna say, Corey, there's something else that happened this year for you, dude. That's a pretty huge thing. Honestly, like, my personal projects, when I first had, like, well, I didn't when my wife gave birth to Ben. Well, it's not like I did much. Like, in that, at that point, it's just kind of like I was there to, like, help out, and then afterwards help out. But I do remember not getting a ton of work done, because I just, like, was really focused on just kind of supporting my day job, and just trying to kind of handle that, and then getting rest every once in a while. I like to think that it would be simpler on the second go, but I'm guessing probably it's probably harder. Yeah. Oh, wait. Okay. I see. See, I feel like you're pushing up the date just so on a technicality you can be right, Corey. I'm joking, by the way. Corey's an honest guy. And I have a bad memory, so I think you've gotten a lot of work done, though. And one's a collaboration. Like, the thing you did with Jim isn't really like a client project, Let's see. I want this to be trying to think of a way to make this a little more interesting, but also I don't want to get too like the temptation would be to just like show like Christ on a cross or something. And like I think that's where it would get chick tract-ish and not like what I'm going for. Election season, posted the animation November. Then didn't it get banned too? Because you were spreading conspiracy theories about fighting congressional robots. I still think that was pretty funny. I think it's interesting when the algorithms can't parse satire. Like, I feel like satire is the sword against algorithms. Like, it's like the one thing where it's like, yeah. Anyhow, I feel like that's like that's one of the things that the algorithm just can't understand. It's like you can't really teach an algorithm like humor. So I do think it's going to be, I do think the viewpoint, this is crossing the line a bit, but I actually think that's okay. Because I don't mind if it seems like time passed. But I do want to make sure I kind of know what I'm doing here. Hang on. Yeah, Corey, I feel like you've had a really successful year. And also, like, client work is not bad. Like, personal projects are great and all, but like client work's not bad. Extra money's not bad. I feel like I'm kind of a weird duck this year where I haven't taken much freelance at all. In fact, I don't know if I've taken, okay, I've done 2 freelance jobs for the whole year. And they were pretty basic. Like, I think one of them was, then again, like with my memory, it might have been last year that I did those jobs. Okay, so this is just going to be an overhead of looking at the sky, you guys. Profoundly thinking. Actually, it's funny because I feel like if you're doing like slice of life, what I'm doing here is pretty cliche. Like, I think there's a lot of like 90s autobio comics that have somebody like looking in the sky. But I still think it's going to be good. And some things are cliche for a reason, right? That's my excuse. All right, so this is just thumbnailing this, getting through it. Let's see. What else was interesting today? Yeah, I mostly just listened to that book and was just weirded out by I think I don't know, it's interesting, but I almost wonder if maybe this like touches on the value of autobiography too and storytelling in general. But it's like the there's something about documentation of events that sort of makes them significant on a level that can almost be like really weighty. and I don't know about maybe on autobio, but definitely in history, I feel like when you live through history, at least my experience has been like living through historical events, which there's been quite a lot. I think just inevitably by being alive, you're going to go through that. But I do feel like the generation that this generation has had to go through quite a lot of like massive upheaval and change that some of the previous generations haven't. But then again, that might also just be my bias from, this is the first time I've lived this generation. So I don't know, maybe if I had like a once around a do-over where I like started from a different time period, maybe I'd have like a different perspective and think it was the previous generation had it easy. I'm sure that's pretty common actually. But anyhow, point being, like, there's something about when you're living through events, they happen slowly. Like you're getting this day-to-day view of onslaughts, like that at like a worm's eye perspective seem like these massive things, but you don't see quite how large they are. So it's almost like if you were and try to think of a I don't think I'm saying anything that really requires too much analogy, but whatever, I'll go for it because that's what I do. I over explain things. But it's like it would be almost like equivalent to like if you were swimming in the ocean and like a giant whale swam by you, but you were like swimming in slow motion and you're tiny, right? And there's this whale, like you'd be aware of like this massive thing next to you, right? And you'd be aware that it's moving, and maybe you'd have an idea that it was a whale, but only until you got distance from it would you be able to see like the full thing, right? Because sometimes, like, I think living through it, it's like you're so close to it you can almost miss the whale that you're swimming right next to. So I don't know if that makes sense, but like it's the broad analogy of it. So it's weird to me to like read history that takes a broader, like a historical work that takes like a broader look at events that I lived through, that we all lived through, and take like the kind of point out the whale, and you're like, oh my gosh, like we were swimming right next to a whale that whole time, like I don't know if that makes sense. Because it's like living through it, it's like you kind of get these little increments. But I think the great thing about a historian or a story or storytelling in general is it can kind of take this microscopic view and bring it to like a macroscopic view. I think this is where Corey could probably word it better. But it's something I've been thinking about because it's definitely, I mean, like, for instance, like even this stuff I'm writing about in my comic, it's like these were events I lived through, but now I'm being able to structure them into like this, it's basically like a hero's journey story structure, but it's like, or I should say like an anti-hero's journey, but anyhow, it's just weird. I don't know. It's been interesting to kind of read that and be reminded of that. Like, oh yeah, that's one really cool thing about what like a historian or like a good storyteller or writer can do. They can take like the micro and see the macro in it. So basically, I'm just saying like micro machines were really awesome, and I don't think they exist anymore. And I miss those commercials of the micro machine guy who would talk really fast. So I don't know. I don't know if that makes any sense, honestly. But yeah, I do think that I don't know. I think there's got to be some truth to that because it definitely feels true. Feels right saying it. I got to think about it more. Maybe structure the thought a little better. For real? Not like micro machines are still around? I have not seen like proper branded micro machines in a long time. But if they're still going, that's good. Because I thought they had like these kind of rip off versions, but I didn't. I haven't seen like the actual micro machines. I mean, if they are still kicking, that makes me really happy. I still remember getting Back to the Future micro machines when I was a kid, and they were pretty cool. The best ones were the Back to the Future 2 ones because they had like all the crazy cool flying like police cars and different cars and stuff that were in that in the film and the movie. But yeah, I had a whole set. So they have like the taxi cab. There's like a checkered cab. All a lot of cool vehicles in that. And what's funny is in retrospect, cars. We didn't get flying cars, so that was way off. But if you look at some of the shapes of the cars, like compared to the cars in the 80s, like how they kind of became more like egg-like. This is just my memory, so again, this could be off, but I feel like they were pretty on point with like what cars wound up looking like, aside from the flying thing, but just the aerodynamic shape of the cars. Let me see. I'm going to look that up now to see if I'm talking out of my butt. Let's see. Back to the Future 2 cars. Images. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of those cars, I mean, some of them were way off, like, but yeah. I'd say in general, I think they kind of, I don't know. I think they were more egg-like, and that felt a little more futuristic. So, whatever. What did you guys think of the cars in Back to the Future? Okay, so I've got that first panel knocked out, and now I'm going to kind of move on to the next. Adventures in cartooning. I think that's actually what I should call this, because it's such an adventurous show that I do here when I'm live streaming. I should start calling it Adventures in Cartooning. There must be a show called Adventures in Cartooning. Corey, is there a show called Adventures in Cartooning? If not, we should just change the indie review show to Adventures in Cartooning. I'm joking, but that's a pretty good title. And I'm going to register it with the government tomorrow if it hasn't been. I'm joking, of course, but I'm only half joking because I actually do like that. You could have the logo look like Adventures in Babysitting. Let's see here. All right, you guys. Now we're getting into the adventure. I think actually I need to use this space a little more too. I want there to be type here. And then I got asked a question about this. There is a book called Adventures in Cartooning. Darn it. But no show. What's funny though is that if there's already a book, then if you had a show called Adventures in Cartooning, people would be like, it's just like the book. And then the author of the book would be like, hey, that's my title. Next time they need to be more original with their titles. Use something like 2 stories. So no one has ever titled their book before. Okay, so to send, okay. So this should say, who wanted me to serve him on earth? Man, I'm in a silly mood today because even just writing to wanted me to serve him. So I was writing, wanted me to serve him on the earth, and I was thinking of the To Serve Man episode of The Twilight Zone, which is a freaking classic, where there's these aliens. They're very strangely tall, and they have kind of like, I think this is pre-Klingons, but they had like these really weird like egg head things. Definitely like cone heads before the cone heads kind of thing, from what I recall. And they come to Earth. They're like really intimidating, but they're like really nice. They keep like feeding all these people, and they invite guests onto their spaceship for like a cruise. And the government just trusts these aliens because they've seen this like handbook that like says like to serve man, and it's like on the cover. So they're like, these guys are cool. They have like a handbook on how to serve us. Like they're here to serve human beings. And then the big twist, once they're in the spaceship and they're, you know, like the delegated humans or whatever to kind of go on this awesome cruise where they're going to be served by these aliens. They're getting fed a bunch, and like they're just getting encouraged, like keep eating, keep eating. And one of the dudes looks further in the To Serve Man manual and realizes that it's a cookbook. So there's like a big twist at the end where he's running around like, it's a cookbook, it's a cookbook. And I think I'm gonna have to rewatch it, but from what I recall, by the time he figures it out, it's too late. So they meant to serve them like food. Yeah. So that's what goes through my mind when I write to serve him on the earth. I still need to see Loki. Did you watch it yet, Corey? I need to watch it. I know it came out today. But we'll see. Valuable enough to him. Ah. And where was that previous shot? There it is. Oh. How did that sequence go? Okay, good. Yeah, that's what I hear. I've heard it has a really good start, so I'm curious because I liked WandaVision's start. I'm that weirdo. I don't know. There was something about it um, being kind of quirky that I liked. This is nerdy. So, from going to comic shops recently, I found out that they're going to do a new Web of Spider-Man, which is interesting to me because Web of Spider-Man was the um, at the time that I was a kid. Um, Corey was saying it makes sense that I like WandaVision. Nothing alleged for 2 hours. um, so when I was a kid, I was really into Web of Spider-Man, and which wasn't the best decision, like as a comic buyer, because like I literally picked the least valuable of all the Spider-Man series at the time to follow, but I really enjoyed it. I think I was really interested in it because it had a lot of the alien costume. Like Web of Spider-Man #1, like has Spider-Man in the alien costume, and it was like really cool. Like that's how it kind of launched. Was like this is the Spider-Man series where Spider-Man's going to wear this cool black costume that's awesome, and then it kind of went through that and stuff. So I bought like hundreds of issues. Well, at least 100 issues of like Web of Spider-Man, and I think #1 is worth like $5 or something. I don't know. I could probably find it on eBay. I wonder if it's gone up in value, but I doubt it. I doubt it. Um, but that was nice as a kid too because I was into reading comics, and so what sucked was like if you were like following Amazing Spider-Man or something, you're not going to like be unless you buy a reprint, which at the time they didn't have all these like graphic novel reprints they have now, which is great. So it was harder to kind of go back and reread the issues. They'd have reprintings, but they'd be like reprinted floppies, and then occasionally they're going to put out like a trade. But if they had trades at the time, I at least wasn't aware of it, like of a lot of the series. Um, and so like Amazing Spider-Man, if that's what you were following, like you're gonna be dropping like tons of money to get all the back issues. Whereas Web of, you could like fill up the back issues, for like a reasonable price. Like even the older issues, at most would be like 10-15 bucks. Like you never had anything that like accrued to like hundreds of dollars in value. Um so anyhow, but that was my series, and I always joked about it because it was like really unpopular. At the time I was buying it too. Like a lot of people at the comic shops just didn't read that issue. They might pick up like an issue here or there if they were following like Spectacular Spider-Man, which was a lot more hip and kind of relaunched, or just Spider-Man or Amazing Spider-Man. So anyhow, all that being said, I've heard they're rebooting Web of Spider-Man, and I'm kind of, I don't know. I'm almost tempted to like ask for that in my pull box just for the hell of it, because that was the Spider-Man I grew up with that I was like really into. Who knows? All right, valuable enough for him. Now I'm repeating because it should, yeah. I wasn't supposed to say valuable enough for him. That was supposed to say, ah, Slow burn was Corey's comment in regards to WandaVision. I don't know. I like me a slow burn. I'm trying to think of a movie that was like so slow paced that I like just wasn't digging it. You know, the last film I saw where the pacing was so incredibly dull, and it's hard to know if that was the reason, but it's like I think my wife and I both like literally fell asleep in the theater. It was Avatar: The Last Airbender, like the movie, the live action. And I loved that cartoon. But the first time we went to see that, because we were all excited about it, and we went to see it in the theater, and because I love the cartoons, like absolutely love them, and I fell asleep. Like I think it was like mid fight scene, like midway through it, and then I ended up like thinking, oh, maybe I was tired, kind of rewatching it and being like, nope, it's really really slow and really boring. Which is sad because like visually it's pretty stunning, you know. Hey Frank, how's it going, man? What you up to? All right, so love my neighbor as myself. How are the mini comics coming? Frank Salazar of the Tarako Creative Cast, which you guys can check out on YouTube. They had Gary Hodges on. It was good. I should comment on it. I don't know if I commented on that. I watched it. I liked it. It was a good interview. Gary's a good dude. So I think this might be another looking at the sky kind of thing, but printing out copies of your minis, nice. So if he's looking here, it's going to be like this. Yes. Yes. All right. Let's see if we can do. Maybe it'll be like a. Okay. Yep. You added copyrights on all your mini comics to make them legit. Did you follow Corey's advice and like send them to the copyright office and stuff? Nice. Thanks, Frank. Thanks for picking up another copy too. Yeah, it's crazy how affordable they are, you know? I feel like for Christmas, I might just like buy that for anyone I know who hasn't bought it because the price is just super low. I'm like, I might I might pick up. I will tell you, like, what they're charging for two stories right now is cheaper than publisher cost, like author cost. Like it's less than I would pay my publisher for my own book, which is kind of rad. So, but thank you for the support, Frank. You're awesome. Oh no, Frank, 2020, but it's 2021, man. Oh noes. Your copyright's expired, dude. No, I'm just kidding. I'm messing around, Frank. I think you're okay. You know what I like to put on mine is like copyright 2020. So it's just really thinking ahead, like thousands of years ahead. At some point, I'll have a copyright on this thing. All right, so let's see here. We're just doing some sky stuff, some boring sky stuff. But I think the sky stuff's important for like what it's going to talk about. All right. 2 panels down, you guys. We are making progress. So are you printing are you reprinting copies to have the copyright, or is it just like the next run that you're like putting it on there? All right, so let's see. All right, Corey said gotta bail. See you guys later. Bye, Corey. Have a good night, man. So now that Corey's gone, let's talk about the automated apocalypse. I'm just messing around. Don't worry, Corey. We aren't going to start anything without you. Have a good night, man. That was a joke because he's super into like dystopian automation future stories. So at some point, I'll lure him in with that. Let's see here. So to grow and to eventually have salvation. And that was Corey Kerr, by the way, of CoreyKerr.com. And you can check out. He's also Corey Kerr on Instagram, and he posts really cool process stuff from like his animations and stuff. It's pretty cool. I should check it out. He's working on a crazy music video right now for a client, and it looks awesome. So this is pretty awesome. I know this stuff happens at like a turtle's pace, so this might not be exciting for people watching the stream. Another page done. So that leaves me with I'll just crumple this for auditory effect. Leaves me with 1, 2. Actually, not even 2. Because it's like a paragraph. And then you see that at the bottom? What that says? That's right. It says end. So the nice thing is I'm really close to thumbnailing the entire thing and laying out the rough pencils for the entire thing. Slow and steady, kids. Slow and steady. And when I say kids, it's likely that the people I'm saying kids to might be older than me. That's just a term of endearment. Okay. So let's see here. To grow and to eventually have salvation. Aha. Speaking of what Corey was talking about, like slow builds. That's cool though, Frank. I'm glad you're printing more copies of the minis. I'm glad you're making stuff. I think that's good. All right, so we're at the hour mark. And for anybody who follows this live stream, you'll know what exactly happens at the hour mark. I turn into a zebra. No. I usually take a break. Yes. So at this point, I'll be heading out to take a very brief, like 20-second break. Whilst I'm not going to head out yet. I'm going to finish this panel. Once I'm finished with this panel, I'll take like a 20-second break and then I will be back. So if you are tuning in or have been watching, rest assured that when I step away, I should be back in about 20 seconds. They don't take that long. These breaks, oh mine. I'm actually really excited about, I might be sounding kind of sarcastic or silly, but I actually am really excited about getting closer to done. And look at that. I also wonder if, since this is from that perspective, would it make more sense for these? I mean, is it crazy to just be like that? Would that make more sense? Since that's actually more accurate to the view. Nope. Accurate or not, I like it better this way. All right, I'll be back in 20 seconds. In the meantime, yeah. So hang in there. And then we'll start the second to last page. So that's pretty exciting. I can't wait to move to the next stage, but I also can't afford to botch it when I'm this close to the finish line of the first chunk of like the work. So, all right, I'll be back. I hope I made time. I think that was about 20 seconds. If you guys were timing me, let me know if I hit my time or if I failed epically. I'm curious what you have to say about that. All right, so now I'm going to work out the rest of this. Here we go. This is going to be interesting. Technically, I should have moved this here because you're not going to naturally go down. You're going to go from left to right. Excuse me. You're going to go from left to right when you read. At least in the US. Like if you're reading in the US, you're going to read like that, like so. So now we're going to stack the next here. And actually, this layout, again, is kind of reflecting the layouts of the beginning pages of the first book. Like so. Okay, so let's see here. We have to do okay, this is actually going to pull back to, it's going to reference back to like the childhood stuff. And I think from like when I'm scrolling through previous JPEGs too, it makes this weird kind of flashing on the screen, so I do apologize for that. Okay, so I think it's from chapter 3. There are pages that I might need to reference here. Yep. Okay. And if you guys are new to Two Stories and you're like, wait a second, that previous chapter looks a lot different than the page you were referencing from the earlier chapter, from chapter 1. Yeah, the styles alternate in my book in 2 different styles. Isn't that crazy? Evening, Gary. I have to ask, Gary, have you said evening, gents, before the Graham Annabelle review, or is that like a deep cut reference to that Graham Annabelle short story? I'm curious because it reminds me of the Graham Annabelle one we went over in IRS, but it also is something I would say. So it's not a bad thing to say, evening, gents. I'm just kind of curious. And how are you, Gary? Gary Hodges of Dinosaurs versus Mars Bots, which you should all check out. Okay, so he said it's not a reference because so there's this Graham Annabelle short story where this guy who's like driving them always says "evening, gents" as like the first thing. And if you're curious to see more of that, check out the Indie Review Show's review of Further Grickle. But yeah, how are you doing, Gary? How's the, so you finished the scripting? That's a huge stage. What's your next phase? Gary is scripting Dinosaurs versus Mars Bots book 3, and if you guys haven't read the first 2 books, you should go get them. Why don't you throw a link out too in the old thing, the chats. Oh, geez, I forgot to mention this. Gary or Frank, if you guys want to hop on the stream too, let me know. I'll shoot you a link. And yes, Frank, I did mention this earlier, but I will mention it again. You guys should check out the latest Tarako Creative Cast where Gary Hodges guest starred. It was good. That was cool, Gary. I love it. Who do you go to feedback? So Gary said he's having the feedback on Dinosaurs versus Mars Bots 1979 script roll in, and he's making little notes and changes. Okay, here, let me invite. I'll invite you guys. Frank, I'm sending it to Facebook. So check your Facebook Messenger. That's where I'm sending it. And then let me see. Gary, same thing through Facebook, if that's okay, sir. Because I'm old. I'm an old man. And so my social media is primarily Facebook. So anyhow, we'll be soon joined by Frank and Gary. And I'm going to rock this next panel. So this is going to reference Christian school. And so there's a whole bit in like the first book that talks about the hypocrisy that I experienced and witnessed when going to Christian school. And a lot of it's like basic like childhood politics stuff, playground politics, the dynamics of playground politics around playing games and stuff like that. And there's Gary Hodges. Gary Hodges, how you doing?
How's it going, man?
All right. I'm happy I showed up. It was one of those days where I was yeah, it was a fight to actually do the work. So
yeah.
Well
then good for you. You won that battle.
It's I feel like it is something that I feel good about because I get like hardcore days where I just do not want to do it.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, and just starting helps a lot.
Oh, that's half of it.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's, in my opinion, the biggest thing you have to learn as a creative is if you're only going to work when you're inspired and want to do it.
Oh, yeah.
Like you might as well just find something else. Like, I mean, that might be harsh to some people's ears, but like, that's kind of how I feel. It's like, you got to learn how to be able to do button share even when you don't want it.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, like today was one of those days too. Because yesterday I was just torched. So it was one of those days.
Yeah.
And so I got home, I didn't do my workout, I didn't do this. And then today I had to overcome that for like both, where I was like, well, maybe I don't need to. And then even after I did the workout, I'm like, well, I'll reward myself for working out. And I did work a long day today. So
yeah, you rationalize. And I should be clear, like anyone who's maybe watching or watches later, you absolutely need mental health days. And you need, and you'll need like once in a while, if you're the CEO of your little thing, you deserve a day off. But there's a difference between that and just like, and just kind of punting. And then before you know it, you haven't worked out or you haven't drawn or you haven't done whatever in 2 days and then 4 days. And that's been a couple weeks.
Yep.
And you don't even remember where you left off. And yeah, no.
Oh yeah. Oh, Frank, give me a heads up once you're good to go on too. Okay, cool. All right.
Good.
Frank Salazar, how's it going, buddy?
Good. I was looking for my headphones, but I couldn't find them, so I just went speaker.
Okay, if there's crazy slapback, then let there be slapback. We were just talking about like the difficulties of like showing up to be creative on days where you don't want to. And I agree, Gary. I think like there's a fine line, right, where it's like you have days like for me, like yesterday was a totally passable day because I was physically just done. Like, and had I tried to press through and get work done, it wouldn't have been good.
Yeah.
But then today, I think for me, a good indicator is like how many excuses am I giving? And then like the more excuses, like the more likely I need to do it.
Yeah. Well, and that's something you said there. That is true. There are some days where if you push, you're probably just making more work for yourself the next day.
Yeah.
Doing the kind of mediocre, difficult, or like just phoned in, or have, whatever the problem was. I think on those days, at least for me, I try to find like, well, what's the thing I can do that's not like, how do I make this not a wasted day?
Yeah.
So maybe if it's a writing day and it's like, I got a headache, I'm not into it, I just know like it's not going to be great. It's like, well, maybe I'll outline the next few pages rather than write them, or if I'm drawing, it's like, oh, I'm not feeling it today. Maybe I'll do some backgrounds or something, like you find something, or I'll lay out all my dialogue. Yeah. I'll lay out all that stuff. Like you find something that is lower effort that you can manage.
Yeah.
So it's not just like a lost day. But.
Yeah, definitely.
I did that too today. Also, I was gonna work on my comic, and I barely turned on the computer. And when I got home from church, like I gotta work on something. So I was just printing out extra copies and just making more mini comics. I'm gonna send out a pack to Javier Hernandez. I'm just waiting for him because he was gonna send me something, so I'm just waiting for him to send me something, and then I'll return the favor and send him a pack of mini comics. I was printing those out, so like, well,
yeah, there's usually always something you can do, even if it's not a great day. There's something you could.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I definitely. Yeah. Let me see. So sorry, just for like 2 seconds, I got to block this out. So, I have a weird question.
A weird question.
Yeah. Do either of you guys like bicycle?
I saw I didn't watch your vloggings today, but I saw there was something about bicycles in the title.
Yeah.
I haven't ridden a bike since college, and that was like 22 years ago or something. So I'm not the one to talk to.
Yeah, in college I used to bike all the time, like just because that was just I couldn't afford insurance or a car, so it was like the way I'd get to work, get to school. Yeah, and I'd bike with like a portfolio case.
Oh my god, I didn't even think of that. No, I never even tried that. No.
Yeah, it was insane. But but I do think that partially might have been why I didn't get like super like out of shape like till later in life, like because I used to bike everywhere, walk places and stuff.
I walked everywhere. I didn't even have my driver's license until a few months after I graduated college.
Oh, you were a late bloomer too. Okay.
Yeah, I walked and bussed and biked everywhere.
Yep.
And then when I graduated, I got hired at my first job right out of school, like before I'd actually technically graduated. Like I had like a week off between graduating and starting my first job. And it was sort of downtown where my dad worked. So, and I just graduated, so I'd moved back in with him. And he was like, well, I can drop you off on my way to work until you get a car. But now, like, the pressure was on. It's like, I got to save some money and get a car because this is not, this isn't the most pimp move in the world to be like dropped off by your dad at your first job after college. That's not the coolest way to go. So I was motivated, like every paycheck was like right into car fund. And like, I think within a month or two, like I was like, all right, I'm ready to buy a car. So, but then I was like, well, I guess I need to go take my driver's test.
Yeah.
I didn't need it. Like it was embarrassing. I was like, I was in my early 20s. Everyone else there was like, looked like babies. They're all 15, 15 and 16. I barely passed because I had been told in Phoenix, I had been told that about half the DMVs where you go and get the test will make you parallel park. And those are all the ones that are downtown where parallel parking is more of a thing. And then the other half, they'll just make you do like a 3-point turn. And I was like, oh, well, I'm definitely going to go to one of the 3-point turn ones because I don't want to learn how to parallel park. So I had read in the manual, like academically, theoretically, how to parallel park, but I'd never attempted. Like never.
Oh, no.
I know. So I go down there. I'm waiting with the 15-year-olds. And they call it like Mr. Hodges. And they're like, right here, right here. And he's like, all right, pull your car around, prepare to parallel park. Like,
and if you were illustrating this, it would be like when they say Mr. Hodges, all the 15-year-olds go.
Yeah.
And you like you do the walk of shame. Like,
yeah, I was dying to get out of there. So like I was jumping out of my seat. Like, yeah, that's me. He's like, pull your car around to parallel park. And my heart sank. It was like a bad dream. And I literally thought, should I just leave? Like, should I just because I mean, this is going to be a disaster. But I thought, like, I can't tell my dad who drove me here to take the test, like, we're leaving, I'm gonna fail. Like, I was like, I got to at least attempt. So I go out there, and I had been also told if you did have to do the parallel parking, if your car, they set up like these traffic cones to represent the car before and behind you. And if your car even touches one of those, it's like an instant fail. Like they don't even do the road test with you. Like you need to do the parallel parking perfectly or you're out of here. So I thought, well, I just have to do my best not to touch a cone. Even if I do a terrible job at this, like don't touch one of the cones. So, and I remembered what I had read. I remembered the diagram in the manual, like how to parallel park. And I'm like trying to do this, like, okay, get kind of in line with the car in front and back up and then crank it and then crank again to like pull in. And I do the whole thing. And I'm like, I don't want to touch a cone. And by the time I'm done, it's kind of hard to illustrate, but like, let's say this is the car behind me. Like I was like this, like I was half, my car was like half in the spot, half not, but I was perfectly straight, didn't touch a cone. So that was my attempt. I rolled down my window while the guy's watching with his clipboard. And I was like, sir, do you want me to do that again? And you can tell it's all he can do just to show up to work every day. Like, I mean, he's just a government employee. He does not give a shit, like, so he's like, no, fine, whatever. Pull around to do the road test. I was like, okay, sir. And I like pull out. And then so to this day, I've never parallel parked. I've been driving.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Because in Phoenix, you don't really have to.
Yeah. So I lived very similar, didn't get my license for a very long time, like ridiculously long amount of time. And most of it was just like, I didn't have the cash to buy a car, didn't have the need for the extra expense of insurance.
Right.
But yeah, when I did learn how to drive, it's like in Long Beach, and it's like you have to parallel park. So what's funny is when I took the driver's test, I actually kind of sucked at just normal parking, just like into a space, because like with a lot of room, because I'm like, but like I know how to parallel park. Like
because there's never a perfect space with a lot of room that you
have and we lived in Long Beach. It's like the parking's just notoriously bad, and then most apartments don't have parking spaces. So you're like, you get really good at parallel parking in like these tight little spaces. And the trick is you just align your mirror. Like that's the big trick of parallel parking. It's like you pull next to the car, you get your mirror like aligned with the car's mirror that you're going to parallel park behind. And then that's where you crank. Like you start cranking back.
That's when you start turning.
Yeah. That's the only trick. Like that.
How far do you? this video is now about parallel parking. How far do you want your car to be from the car next to you when you're like lining up?
You pretty much want to be pretty cozy, So
like a foot, like 15 inches, something like that. Yeah,
foot's good. Like maybe a little further than a foot, but foot's probably good, And then basically you line up. The big trick for me, that's what unlocked it for me, was like you just get that, you get your passenger rear view mirror lined up with theirs, their driver's seat side one, and then you just start cranking back, and then you crank back. That's the hard part, because like just aligning, I think for most people that's, oh my goodness, I'm like hitting my mic, but I think for most people that's where the thing begins. But generally, if you got your mirrors lined up, like you're going to be good, unless it's like a giant truck.
Well, yeah, then it has to be a car that's about your length, I guess, for it to work. But
yeah, I mean, but in general, like I've never really had an issue with that. So, but I mean, I did initially, man. That was a beast to learn. But it's like it's funny because on my driver's test, it was like the opposite, where I just had more issues, like just parking, like in a like, you know, like grocery store parking lot, you know.
Yeah. You
where
would have had trouble with the one I was trying to get, because I think the one that I was trying to get was you pull into a spot from one direction, you back out of it, and then you leave going the direction you came. Like that was sort of the maneuver, which to me seemed like the easiest thing in the world compared to parallel parking. Like I literally picked out that location thinking like, well, I'm going to this one. We drove farther. We drove past other opportunities because it was like, no, this is the one where I won't have to parallel park. And then first damn thing the guy says, pull your car around for parallel parking.
That is so hubris, like just 100%. So okay, D versus M. Oh, okay, so I was gonna ask you, when you send it out, like who do you get feedback from usually?
Each time there's a couple of people I've used every time. This time I'm trying to favor writers. It's always been a slightly different approach. Like with 97, I was really concerned about writing a woman, and I was really concerned about writing an addict. So I was finding friends who either were women who were, liked to read, were readers, or into comics, even better, and have them just say like, how does Jenny come off? Does Jenny seem like a plausible woman? Like, am I doing anything obnoxious or weird or cringy as a man writing a woman? Can you please help me? And then the other thing was,
what do you mean, like all those sections of the script where you were just talking about how hot men are and
exactly how
obsessed with how obsessed with men.
Like, do you think like this bra makes my boobs look good? Like all that kind of stuff. Like
exactly. All she is obsessed with her appearance and her utilitarian nature to men.
Yeah. Just hyper sexual. I mean, that's the main point with 97.
Yeah. And then the way it shows that she's a strong woman is just every once in a while she says, "I'm a strong woman."
That's right. She declares it for the audience.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, in her quest to get married and have babies.
Yeah. So, totally. What could be wrong with that plot?
No. I thought it was very effective. No. So I pulled females. It's like I'm a Klingon. I brought in females to read I brought in women to read my script. They're very
human women.
Human women.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And then because Jenny, the main character in 97, is a addict, I have 2 female friends who are in recovery. So nice. I was like, I would love your insights. Like, does she come off correct? Is she saying the things you'd expect someone in her kind of situation to say? Or, I just want it, because not only did I not want a caricature of a woman, I didn't want a caricature of an addict. Like I wanted this all to seem I don't want people checking out from the human stuff. If people are going to check out of my comic, it should be from aliens and dinosaurs running around. It shouldn't be like the thing that's not believable. It shouldn't be the human characters and the things that are coming out of their mouths. So I take a lot of time with that. So 97, I was emphasizing women and people who have had substance problems. 75, because it was the first comic I'd ever done, I went to all the friends I knew who were way into comics. I thought, well, they can, I don't know who else to go to. So people who I know just know a ton more about comics than me, who have read more comics than me, like they can read over 75. This one, like I said, I'm kind of going for writers just to mix. I try to change it up each time, if for no other reason than I don't want the same people spoiled every time. I would like some of them to be able to read the comic and not have read the script.
Yeah, that's true.
So this one, I'll be going to my friend Laura, who is also the stand-in for Jenny, who's read all my comics, and she's also an artist. She's usually someone that I'm always sending my finished pages to, just to say, like, does any of this... Because she's done it way longer than me. She's got more training than me. She's just a better artist than me. And she'll pick out things that I don't normally see. Like, she'll be like, oh, you've got a tangent here in this panel or something. And I'll be like, well, like, I didn't even see that, you know? So, like, I get her to look at it. She'll read it. I had my friend Keith over at the Making Comics podcast. He's also a comics writer. He's working on a novel. I'm having him read it. I sent a copy over to Dan Ickes to look at again. He looked at 97. Jason at Fogbreaker Studios, Mini Comic Bundles. Like, I'm having him look over it. And, you know, it's just you know, trying to get, like, a mix. I try to always get, like, people who are hardcore comic people who don't really care about comics, people who read a lot of books. Yeah. You know, like, I try to get as best I can kind of a cross section of a few different people. And
yeah, that's smart.
But I was talking about it with Frank, I think after his show when we were talking. Yeah. I always throw out a lot of escape routes when I approach somebody, because the last thing you want is someone who's not enthusiastic or has hesitations or whatever, like reading. Like, I think that's just a bad move. Like, you want someone who is game.
Yeah.
So I always approach people very hat in hand, like, hey, you know, I'm working on my script. I think it's finally at a stage. It's not done, but I think it's at a stage where people can look at it. If you have time, if you're interested, you want to take a look, I'd love to get your feedback, good or bad. But if you're not busy, or like if you're too busy, it's cool. If you don't want to be spoiled, if you want to just see it for the first time when it's done, I understand. Like, I give them 8,000 potential nice excuses.
Yeah, give them an out. Yeah.
Other than just like, I don't want to, you know, like, I mean, I give them all sorts of very like, I make it very easy for them. So hopefully the people who are left are people who are into doing that. And then I also try, and this is trickier, you try to pick people who you think will have good insights. Not necessarily, and when I was talking about it with Frank, not necessarily positive, like, that's not what you want, just straight whatever their reaction is. But there's a difference between, and the thing I was talking about with Frank, there's a difference between, it was okay, here's what I would do, and they give you, like, their weird rewrite, which is not helpful. What is helpful is, like, someone who has read enough or has thought enough or is interested enough in your work to say, I think I see what you're trying to do here, and I think you're missing the mark a little bit here. Or I think it would be even more effective what you're trying to do if you, and I think this distracts a little bit. You know, someone who's going to basically be a great editor and help you find, they get a sense of where you're trying to go, and they're going to try and help you get there.
Yeah, 100%.
Not do their, like, fan fiction rewrite, which is not, you know, it's like, why don't you add, you know.
No, there's definitely a fine line. Well, it's not even that fine of a line. It's a pretty broad line between someone who's just trying to live out their writing through you, and then somebody who's actually wanting to improve a piece of writing and get you closer to where you're trying to go as an author. Yes. And it's like, but like, so it's hard because it's like, you don't want to surround yourself with sycophants, you know, who are just going to be like, oh, it's brilliant. You want to surround yourself with people who are really analytical, and especially like, you also need your grammar nerds, right? Because like, grammar nerds and spelling nerds are the best, because they'll catch stuff like, oh, you were past tense here and now you're present tense, or
Unfortunately, I am one of those guys.
Yeah, me too.
The last job before my current job, I was a supervisor, but before that, I was basically a proofreader. So nice. I can do that, and I have a little bit of an out with mine, because it's always like, I try to write naturalistic dialogue.
Yeah.
Which means sometimes it's going to be incorrect. You know, and sometimes it's gonna sound right. It's gonna be the way someone would say it, but it's not technically, according to Hoyle, correct grammar. So, you know,
well, that would be the weirdest way to write conversations. It's like grammatically correct conversations would be unbelievable. They'd sound like Padme and, you know,
yes,
like the Senate sequences of the prequels. Like
it would sound very formal, kind of strange.
Yeah.
It wouldn't sound like normal people talking.
Mm-hmm.
So I think a litmus test. I said this in one of my videos once. I think I alluded to it when Frank and I were talking about it. If you know someone who can recognize something as good even if they don't like it, and vice versa, that something is bad but they like it anyway, that's probably someone that I think, even if they don't know it, they could be a pretty helpful proofreader and editor, because they know how to separate their personal tastes from like quality.
Yeah.
So even if they're reading a thing where it's like, look, I would never read a comic, I would never read your comic, but I can tell what's working here, you know, because I know, like, an example, like if you know someone who can say like, that's a really good movie, I didn't like it, you know, like that to me is an interesting insight, like someone who can remove themselves from, you know, and like I said, vice versa. Like one of my favorite movies of all time is Dracula versus Frankenstein. It's a B movie from the 70s. It is horrendous. Like it's really bad, and I love it. I mean, I just love how like stupid and terrible and cringy.
Yeah, I love Tom Jones, and I'm not going to say Tom Jones is good.
Yeah,
I think that's why I love Tom Jones. But if somebody were like critically analyzing Tom Jones, I wouldn't be like defending him, you know? Because I'd be like, yeah, he's terrible, but he's awesome.
And I'm like, you know, I went through a huge phase. I still have a bunch of them, like just bad kung fu movies. You know?
Dude,
like I just adore them, but I'm not going to try and actually.
The Shaolin series is so good and bad. Good. It's so badly good.
Or like, I don't know if you've seen Ricky-O, the story of Ricky. That's like, which it's like hyper violent and ridiculous and insane. I love that movie. I would never, not even to be provocative, try to argue that it's a great movie.
I feel like most kung fu flicks are failing if they're great movies. Like,
yeah, like I mean, or it's like not even that category. Like, Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon is a great movie, I guess.
It is, yeah.
But would you call it a kung fu movie? Not really.
No.
I mean, sort of. Like it's in that same lineage, I guess, but it's an actually good movie.
Yeah.
But the Five Deadly Venoms is ridiculous. Like it's just camp and fun and pretty bad, but a delight to watch. So
simple premise and just crazy stupid action.
Yeah. I mean, that's great.
With amazing sound effects, amazingly bad sound effects.
Oh, that's the best part.
Which is the spoof one? I think it's like Kung Fury or something.
Kung Fury. Well,
there was kind of fun.
A great spoof of Enter the Dragon in this old movie, this comedy movie, Kentucky Fried Movie. I don't know if if you Google it. It's called Kentucky Fried Movie. It's kind of just like a series of skits. But the one thing that pulls it all together in the very center of the movie, there's like it feels like it's like maybe even a half hour, 45 minutes. That's basically just like a camp remake of Enter the Dragon, Bruce Lee's Enter the Dragon. Okay. And it's hilarious. And you can tell they've seen this movie. They've seen Enter the Dragon 8 million times. Like the little touches and the little nods and the little winks. Like that, you can tell they adore this movie. But they made it just a totally like kind of slapsticky, airplane-esque, goofy rendition of Enter the Dragon. It's perfect. It's really good.
I'll have to see that. I love Enter the Dragon a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was the first Bruce Lee movie I saw.
Yeah, and I mean the the sound is off on it, and it's so good. And
he's poorly dubbed. Like
yeah.
Or ADR'd. I can't tell. That might be his voice, but it doesn't match.
I think it's dubbed, but it's just like, I also think the sound in that film in general is like, just at least the old versions, it's like a second off.
Yeah, like even
great.
Even the English speaking actors seem dubbed. Like there's a weird, the audio's not great.
Yeah,
the writing is baffling at times, where like someone will say a line, and then someone will say something back to them that doesn't even seem to really follow what was just. It's not a great movie, but it's.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So I was watching John Wick recently, and I realized I need to educate my wife more on like terrible kung fu flicks, because it got to the end, like I think it was like the second one or something, but it got to an end sequence that's in like a giant hall of mirrors, and I'm like, it's Enter the Dragon. It's Enter the Dragon.
Yeah,
it's a total homage to Enter the Dragon. And she's like, what? And I'm like, oh my gosh, we have to watch Enter the Dragon now, because
it's so good.
And also, I never understood why, like, and this is why I love kung fu flicks too. There's great things like, so you have the guy with the claw who's like the villain, and he just like takes out all these hardcore badasses, and at the end when he sees Bruce Lee, he's just like, yeah, and like runs away, and then he's like, swipe, like that's his one move, and I'm like, but he just did these crazy, merciless, like insane, like, you know, fights with these guys, and then like. But then again, it is Bruce Lee, so he probably was wise to just. I
mean, if you see, you know, the way they set him up in the tournament, he's kind of unstoppable. Maybe he sized him up and realized, like, I'm not.
This is a force of nature, good guy. I'm screwed in this equation.
Live to fight another day.
Yeah, I'm just gonna cheat from this point on.
That's right.
I definitely want to write a story that. There's a couple things like we were reviewing Gorillas, like the
yes, that's on my watch later list because I missed it that night.
Yeah, and the structure of it's pretty cool because it's like it's very transparent, but it's like you're sort of like where you have two opposing forces and you have the narrative switching from one to the other, and you know that it's like the pursued and the pursuer, and so. It just switches back and forth as like the one's chasing the other or tracking the other down. And gradually, you know, like these two are going to face off. So it just builds this tension because it's just constantly switching back and forth as they're getting closer and closer. And, you know, and I was reminded of how good that dynamic is, where you have like this tension of a pursuit, you know, that switches narratives. And I think that would be a fun device I don't know, like at some point, like whenever I'm done with this book, I think that might be something I try where just for my plot structure, I'm like, okay, you got good, you got bad, pursuing, pursued, and then just narrative just flips back and forth. Because it inevitably, Corey's still here, Corey.
Corey's still here?
Yeah, I thought you bailed, man.
He came back. I thought he went too.
By the way, I think part of it is Corey has like a newborn, so I'm just giving him grief for no reason. He's probably like had to, you know, get the kid to sleep.
He's been on baby duty.
But I'm still gonna give him grief.
Sure.
But yeah, so it builds all this tension, and like the whole time you have a like, oh, it's on kind of feeling, you know, because it's an action story too, even though there's a lot of depth to it. But it's such a great premise, you know.
Just a little bit of that video I saw was enough for me to add it to my Amazon cart because it just felt like something that I would probably be into. And I'm just what you're saying. I'm kind of intrigued to see how you would handle something like that in a comic format. You know, like you can picture that in other mediums, but like how, in a comic, like how do you pull that off?
Yeah, it's really good. It also does something you do, which is like it takes an absurd premise
Yeah.
And then it does it just like super seriously.
Play it straight. Yeah.
So it starts with just like, I mean, it literally is a pun where it's like, oh, it's guerrillas doing guerrilla warfare.
Yeah, I get it. Guerrilla warfare. Yeah.
But then it just gets like, it takes it super seriously, and it's
cool.
very effective, as it is with Dinosaurs versus Marsbots. Because like you say that name, and most people are going to think like, it's going to be this campy
comic. Yeah, right.
Yeah. And it does have that. There is some campy stuff. There's definitely a lot of like alien death ray awesomeness.
You get what? Yeah. You get little bits of that, but
it's serious, you know, and I think that's great. I love that idea. I don't know.
You know, it's funny. So Paul Pate popped into the video with Frank.
Nice. Paul's a good dude.
He's a good dude. Yeah, I like him a lot. And he asked a good question. I forgot exactly how he asked it, but it was basically like I was talking about the series and working on it. And he was asking like, you know, do you worry about getting bored or are you getting bored? You know, like it was something about like just the length of it, doing multiple, you know, multiple installments. And I told him, and I've been thinking about it a lot now that I'm, you know, in writing mode with this third one. Not really, because D versus M, I'm fortunate in that because it's very much an anthology thing, and everyone is totally different characters and totally different ideas and Oh,
you froze.
You did that on our stream too.
We have lost Gary, and it's because he was talking openly about aliens, and there's consequences to that, you guys. Like, I think that they're trying to take Gary.
Look at that. As soon as I start talking about D versus M, the government moves on me.
I was just saying that, like, they are trying to keep you from talking truth.
Yeah. All I was going to say was, with D versus M being an anthology series, each story is self-contained, all different characters in each one, different themes, different ideas, different situations, where it's kind of a fun playground for me, where it's kind of hard to get bored because each one is totally different. Yeah, it has the same backdrop, but like each one is a very distinct story. And, you know, and especially like as it goes from here, like I've been telling people, the next one is very much what I'm going to not the next one. The one after the one I'm working on now is very much like my horror comic. Like I want it to be the scariest one, and it's going to have a very different feel from the others. The one after that, which will be the fifth one, is kind of my weird Lovecraftian cosmic horror comic, you know, where it'll go into so each one, it's like, yeah, it's all D versus M, it's all Dinosaurs versus Marsbots, and we'll all have this kind of similar feel. But it's hard to get bored because each one is its own weird, unique project. So
yeah, you can do a romance novel.
You know, it's funny. I have joked with a couple people who have read the scripts and know where I'm going with it. I did have an idea for one that I said like would kind of be my Wes Anderson one, like if Wes Anderson did a Dinosaurs versus Marsbots, where I had a concept of kind of a cute, quirky, romantic one with a weird kind of backdrop on this kind of quiet edge of the Dinosaur-Martian War that's not as dramatic as the other parts. And I was like, if anyone was going to do a movie of this idea, it'd be like Wes Anderson. It'd be perfect. But that one's not going to be a comic. I might release it as a short story or something. But.
So I don't know if I told you guys this, but Two Stories Book 2, the last panel is actually going to reveal that it is part of the Dinosaurs versus Marsbots universe. That would be amazing, though. It's like at the end, he gets taken by aliens or something.
Let's work on that crossover.
I like the idea of some kind of. I have thought of that. Like, there's been times I rarely get tired of this because it's something I feel very passionate about. But there have been a few times where I've just been like, just wanted to shoot the characters or something. Like,
going crazy just to break.
Because it's auto bio, and so it's like, it's very creatively fulfilling, and there's restrictions within it, which I think actually help creativity. But still, there are times where I get like, I'm really sick of drawing myself. So it's tempting to do stuff like where it's like, and now it's an action comic, and like,
yeah. Right. You get bit by a radioactive spider, like it all goes sideways. Yeah. No, I totally kind of. I still. I don't know. It's funny. I don't know if it's something that would maybe never happen, but it's. I brought it up on Artcasters once. I do like the idea of doing fan art of each other's stuff, just for fun, like just to mix it up. Because I think it was when you did that print for Scott. I think you did and I was like, that would be kind of fun to try and draw. I'm generally like not a fan art person, but if it's somebody I know, and I got sort of their approval, where it's like, hey, can I just do like a couple panels of 2 stories, and like Scott can do a couple panels of Dinosaurs from Mars Boss, you can do a couple panels of like the Young and the Dead. I mean, it'd be just fun just to mix it. I don't know, just as a weird like on a lark, I'm
gonna write that down as like a thing, because I feel like if we scheduled it out, and Corey, if you're still there, hop in, man.
Corey could do something. Frank, we could just get a bunch of people in. Like, it could be like Secret Santa fan art, where it's like, even if it was randomly assigned, like, you're doing this, you're doing this. And if you made it small enough where it isn't a big thing, we're all busy, we're all trying to do our own thing. But if it was a little thing where it's like, spend like couple hours just doing a something, just, I don't know, it might be fun.
I like the idea. I mean, it was really fun to do Scott's characters in like my own way, because it's like they're such fun characters, but it's like my approach would be a lot different. And it was cool because it was like, I love his comic, so it was
I was a little envious when I saw it. I was like, that would be fun to draw like a Young and the Dead thing or something, just to see like, how would I draw that? I don't know,
it is a fun challenge, and it's a good exercise too. And like, also, I like being able to exercise that muscle. Like, I feel like if I did that for people, it would end up being like my kind of B-movie look. Because I have these like different styles I work in, but that's definitely one I default to a lot because I love it for like covers and stuff. But it would be fun. It would be super fun.
Yeah, just if you're searching for a theme for a video in the future, or something.
No. I literally wrote that down because that's actually something when it was first brought up, I was like, that's actually a good idea. And I think even we talked about like potentially if it was like every 3 months, it wouldn't be like, or like maybe like once or twice a year or something. It's not like a huge, because the goal would be, like, the last thing I want to do is make another challenge online that can distract people from doing work,
Right.
Which is weird, and this might be unpopular, but I feel like Inktober and some of these challenges, I'm not saying it works this way for everyone, because I have a lot of friends who are really productive artists who do the challenges all the time, but I do think there's a sense in getting locked in challenges where it's like people just don't. It can almost become like a form of procrastination,
I
agree.
If you watch me, not that I'm the lesson.
You're selective about it though. Like I follow your stuff.
It's usually when I'm writing.
Yeah.
Like, and I feel like I want to keep my toe in drawing. Like, I don't totally, but if I'm in comic mode, you couldn't pay me to do a daily drawing challenge thing. It's like, I got enough to do. I'm drawing every day anyway, like I can't, I'm not going to do that.
You'd be one of the least of my worries because you have a high output. So it's like, you're not, like you've overcome a lot of obstacles and hurdles and have a workflow, and it's very effective.
I'm pretty militant when I'm in work mode. Like, I don't.
Yeah, so you wouldn't be one of the people I would think of, but like I definitely can definitely think of people I know and people I've followed that where I'm like, stop doing the challenges.
Me too.
And start doing your own thing.
Well, or I hate to admit this, but sometimes I'll be looking at them posting and I'll be like, are you working on anything right now? Like it kind of, my head goes there. It's a little bit like walking in on someone in their office and you see they're playing solitaire. It's like, what are you, do you not have enough to do? Like,
totally.
Like that's and maybe that's an unfair reaction, but that's kind of my reaction when I see, people like 6 times a year doing a daily drawing challenge.
Yeah, and I mean, this is something that comes from somebody who, like, I am very slow and I have a very like meticulous and slow output, but still, like, that's where I get even more judgy of it, because I'm like, come on, if I'm able with like how slow I am and like how long my process is, like I don't know. I definitely think I think challenges are good to get people to do art and to draw and just like structure muscles, or like if you're scripting and you're like, you need to kind of keep sharp. Or like maybe that's your thing and like that's what you want to do as an artist. And in that case, I'm not judgy. I get judgy when it's the own person's goal and they're sidestepping their own goal by doing challenges. Cause I'm like, come on, just stop the challenges. Like that could have been a panel. Right there.
Exactly. Well, and one thing I'm going to do, but I'm rationalizing it a few ways.
And by the way, Gary, doesn't apply to you, just so you know.
Oh, I know. Yeah, no, I'm not feeling personally attacked.
Okay, cool.
I totally get it.
Okay, because you are on my list of people.
I feel
no, I'm just kidding. That would be hilarious. I have like a black book, and I'm like Gary, like crossing it. No, you're good.
He's not serious.
You're good now.
Not serious anymore. No, what I this is mostly because I was missing it because of pandemic.
Yeah,
I signed up to take a night life drawing class in the fall.
Oh, awesome!
So, now
that's not a waste.
That's not a waste. First of all, it's only one night a week. It's one of these like 3-hour studio sessions.
Dude, life drawing, you could do 2-3 nights a week. You're not wasting your time. Like life drawing is always advantageous. Totally
compliments, because even though I probably will be drawing D versus M 1979 this fall, like doing life drawing in a classroom is only going to help my drawing the comic at home. So it's like, no, this I can allow. Like if I was taking a painting class or something, I think I would be starting to have second thoughts. Like this might be stupid because I'm trying to draw a comic at the same time, and that's not going to help me. Yeah. I think life drawing will be like, no, this is all the same muscle. It's all the same. Like this will be good. This will be good.
No, and life drawing doesn't tend to be like the weird thing is like, when you're in school and you're taking like art courses, they seem like just so time consuming and crazy, but it's like, it's not really that much time. Like
especially a 1 night a week art class.
Yeah. Like, that's not that bad.
Yeah. And midweek, it's not the week. Weekend is usually my most productive time when I'm in drawing mode. Yeah. So it's not touching that. That's good. Like it's, it'll be good.
That sounds awesome. I've thought about that. I also I'm mixed on when I'm done with the second book. I also have thought about just taking like 3 months or so and just painting. But what's funny is I say that now, but there's a lot of stories I want to tell.
I know.
So I have a suspicion I might just start the next crazy project. I don't know.
I think whenever I decide I'm done with D versus M, whether it's because I finished the series and I'm happy, or I don't know, like I don't even consider this, but 2 years from now I might decide like I'm over it, you know, or like Marvel will put out some, dinosaurs versus Venetians or something, and it'll feel like, and now I'm aping something. Like I won't want to. It's like, well, this is cover territory now. Everyone's gonna think this is some weird copy. Like I could imagine reasons where I'm like, yeah, you know what, I did it.
So you're saying it's just gonna basically become like a thief and a cobbler kind of situation,
right? It could. You never know. But no, I intend to see it through.
Well, Marvel is owned by Disney now, so.
Yeah,
if it's going to happen, it'll probably happen from Marvel.
Well, ideally, I'll sell out to them and they'll make just a totally unfaithful, disgusting version of Dinosaurs versus Mars bots that I can complain about for the rest of my life from atop my pile of money. But I
do like the idea of optioning. Like I'm not like as cool of a person as now I'm blanking out. Oh my gosh, how could I blank out? Oh well, whatever. I'm not an integrity guy when it comes to that kind of thing. Like if somebody wanted to pay me a bunch of money to option my comic, even an auto bio where it's like I'm literally selling my life, I'd be like, yeah, go for it.
Story. Yeah.
I'll take the cash, because most of the time when it gets optioned, it's just going to be shelved anyway.
Right.
And then if it's not, like, hey, I don't know, like even if the story and the adaptation sucks, it still brings more eyeballs to your work, you know?
Yeah, I probably would. Like I feel like, it was funny. I thought maybe this was a crazy thing to feel, but then I heard my friend Keith say the same thing. He was talking about, like, if anyone, he had his comic series is Kadoja. It's like a kaiju, sort of like a Godzilla kind of thing.
Yeah.
And they were having a conversation on their podcast, like, what if they sold out? Like, would they want to maintain control of the property? How much say would they want to have, and, like, stuff with it going forward? And he was saying, and I believe it was very candid, he was like, you know what, like, if they took control and they ran it in the ground or do whatever, it's like, it's fine. Like, I have other things I can do. Like, I have other stories. I have other stories to write. I have lots of ideas. Like, it's like he didn't have a crazy sentimental attachment to that one particular thing.
Yeah.
And I would like to think I would sort of feel similar. Like, it's like, I can.
Yeah, that's the thing, is like, in theory, but in reality, I can definitely see where, like, okay, so if I like sold the rights to my story and suddenly they're like, it's just a completely different story with a completely different intention and arc, like, depending on how cool artistically it ends up being. Because even then, if it ends up being a really good work, then cool. But yeah, it would kind of suck to get known for something that's not even really what you made, but it just is like branded with your stuff. So,
well, ask Alan Moore, right? I mean,
yeah,
like, every chance he gets, he sits in bags on any interpretation of his, or there's a few like that. Yeah. I think I'm looking at my wall right now to see.
It's weird. I don't even like Scott Snyder, but I really actually very much don't like Scott Snyder, but I like 300. That was a fun movie.
Oh, Zack Snyder?
Or sorry, is that his name, or is it Scott
I think it's
Snyder?
Zach. Yeah.
Okay.
I thought 300 was great.
I thought it was great. It was a great movie.
Maybe this is an unpopular opinion for the comic purists. I think it works better as a movie.
Yeah, no,
I read 300. I own 300. I think
I like 300. I also, this is going to be the part that gets all crazy, is because I won't even watch like HBO's series at all. Yeah. But I actually liked Watchmen the movie. Like, I thought he did an excellent job, and I actually thought it was pretty authentic, and I think it's as close and as accurate of an interpretation as you're gonna get.
It's pretty good, and I agree. And
is that weird?
No, I don't think so. I mean, because I'm a huge Watchmen fan. The comic, I liked the movie a lot, and especially like the director's cut, which has like it's like the ultimate cut or something like that, which is enormously long and has a lot of stuff. It even has the what is it, Tales from the Black Freighter or whatever the comic. It has like that as a cartoon within it, like that you're watching. It cuts to this animated version of the Black Freighter. I thought my quibbles with it are so minor. It kind of indicates that it was pretty good.
Yeah, like I was very impressed by it.
I thought Night Owl needed to be fat. Like, I didn't like that because the idea was that he was run down, like he had kind of not been doing this for a while. He had that pot belly through the whole comic. And he was like fit and lean and like fine, like he looked fine, and like that kind of annoyed me.
Yeah, for some reason, like any film has issues with that. Like there's that Netflix series with the supposedly unattractive chess lady. I'm forgetting
who's gorgeous.
Oh yeah.
Who's gorgeous. And I was just like, I mean,
Queen's Gambit or whatever.
Yeah, but then like even in the plot, it's like, this whole like, well, I'm plain and I'm, it's like I don't buy it. I don't buy your narrative because
not only are you attractive, you're unusually attractive.
Yeah, like, it's not like a So I find that to be strange in Hollywood, where like what they consider unattractive when they cast is pretty weird.
I totally.
So I'm sure, like when they were casting Watchmen, they were like, "Dude, this guy is totally overweight. Like he fits the profile, and it's because like he has like 2 pounds or something.
Yeah, because he's
over Superman.
I didn't like that. I was trying to explain this to my girlfriend. The whole point of Watchmen is that none of them had superpowers except for Manhattan. Like they're all just people. They're fit and they're tough, but they're not. Yeah, they're not superhuman. And in the movie, when you're watching them fight, like they're punching people and they're going flying. Like they're doing a lot of things that a normal person you wouldn't think would be able to do. So I wanted them to tone that down a little bit, like make them seem a little more like real world. Yeah. Again, these are small complaints and like what I thought was a pretty impressive accomplishment.
Yeah, and I was really impressed because the fact that somehow they greenlit all the stuff with Manhattan was unbelievable, because I didn't think they'd be able to get away with like the whole him kind of actually becoming God towards the end and then like just going straight existential. And I was like, they actually did it. Like they actually went all out like on that part.
Super loyal.
Cut and
super loyal. And that birth of Manhattan, those couple minutes.
Yeah.
Are kind of perfect and beautiful, like they're just really like I thought that was this really, really solid movie.
And also I do want to say like I feel like Dave Gibbons gets like the short shaft all the time when it comes to that book, because like I've read a lot of Alan Moore and I think he's a genius writer and responsible for especially like some of the things I hate in comics recently. Like I'm getting a little tired of the whole like it's superheroes, but it's serious kind of thing. And I'm an auto-bio guy, but I'm just like, it's getting kind of played out at this point.
I totally agree. And I think it's hurting it for me where it's like, everyone's been telling me to sit and watch The Boys or Invincible.
Invincible's great. But
see, and I know, and it probably is, and The Boys is probably great too.
Yeah, The Boys is more sarcastic, but
this is like Watchmen, right? This is like, but it's superheroes, but it's gritty. Superheroes, but they're rapists. Like, it's like I get it. It. It feels played, and it might be great, but like,
it's like every once in a while you actually want to see just kind of superheroes as superheroes and just kind of call it a day, because it's sort of like Westerns. Like you can watch the very serious, like gritty Western, but every once in a while it's fun to see just like a straight up spaghetti Western. And you're like, oh, okay, this is kind of fun. Like, I want
Unforgiven, and I also want The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. Like,
but I mean, like, But like Alan Moore, his impact on comics and like the importance of him as a writer is not, to be downplayed. But Dave Gibbons, man, is one of the main reasons Watchmen is just so good. Like that comic is perfectly staged. Like the way it's drawn, the gritting. And I know they say like Alan Moore does like really meticulous thumbnails and stuff, but no.
No, I agree. Well, and so, like, for example, V for Vendetta.
Yeah.
I think that's like 300, where I kind of thought it was a better movie than a book. Yeah. And like, I don't, that I know is sort of a hot take, because I know a lot of people were mad about V for Vendetta.
Yeah. The casting was great, though, too.
The casting was great.
Casting was exceptional.
Yeah. And like, I thought it, and I guess it's kind of a different thing. It changes some of the themes, but I thought it was easier to enjoy.
Yeah, and it's kind of more edited, like in a good way.
Right. Well, you want to hear a controversial take. I was thinking about it in something that you brought up in one of your videos. You were talking about On the Road. I kind of think On the Road, the movie that came out a few years ago, about 6 or 7 years ago.
Oh, I haven't even watched it.
I think it's better than the book. I really do. And this is On the Road. I've read On the Road many times. I totally get to Jack Kerouac. I get it. Like, I feel like it's a weird stream of consciousness book with no real point and no
totally.
And therefore, exactly. It kind of reads like a weird travel journal by a hipster, which is what it is. And it kind of, there's no narrative to it, you know? Like, if there's any narrative, it's sort of accidental. This is my take.
Okay.
On the Road, the movie gently shapes it into something that makes some sort of sense. You know, like there's some kind of an arc, like where it's like, oh, okay, now, you know, and I don't feel like they had to toss anything out. Like all the ideas are there, all the interesting things are there, all the characters are there. But it just narrativizes it a teaspoon more than the book. And I found it much more enjoyable, where I actually found the book a little challenging as far as a read goes. Like not challenging in the way like Dostoevsky or something is, but challenging in that it's like trying to organize this person's disorganized thoughts and observations. You know, like I found that a little tiresome at times when I would sit and read the book, where the movie kind of makes it a little more accessible.
More of like a through line to it. Well, to be fair, it was written on like one sheet of paper, so
it was one long roll, right? Yeah, right? Exactly. Yeah.
I think it was actually 2 rolls, but still, that's still absurd. Because I looked into it and I was like, I think it ended up being like 2 rolls, because at some point he actually did cut but still
pretty cool
on a typewriter.
Look, I would just tell anybody out there, and I recommend it to you. Yeah, check out the movie. You might not agree with me, but I would say it's at least very good.
Okay, I'm curious to see it. I also would need to reread On the Road, but I do remember there being continual, like there's a lot of visual clarity throughout it, like in the sense of like there's themes that repeat throughout the book. A lot of them are more visual and visceral, but they're still there. There's definitely a through line. There's character arcs. I mean, you definitely, Allen Ginsberg's character, you see definitely progress and change. That was the problem with On the Road, because he has the most drastic change as a character. The problem with On the Road is Jack Kerouac himself. Like I thought he doesn't change. What's you know, like as a character, he doesn't change, right? Like he doesn't really have like any profound sort of change. Like he's almost like a conduit. Like he's just a character it's very interesting. He's also a really terrible poet. Jack Kerouac is. I can't stand Jack Kerouac's poetry. I love his prose, but like his poetry is terrible, and that's a hot take that like a lot of people disagree with. No, but Ginsberg would agree. Great.
Yeah, exactly. I know. I would agree with you. I find Kerouac's. It's funny. As frustrated as I was reading On the Road, the couple times I've read it, I enjoy like his sort of rhythm and the way he writes. Like it's not like what's an example? Cormac McCarthy.
I love, but man,
I find him very difficult to read. Like,
especially The Road. Man, you want to be depressed for like half a year. Oh my god!
And like The Road, like that's so powerful. But I would think, especially for someone with a son, to like read The Road, it's like you should be ready to dip in and out of this, because it's going to be heavy. Like it's gonna be tough. Like I remember I gave it as a gift to my uncle who has a son, And I kind of tried to give a little disclaimer, like it's probably going to be hard.
By the way, this is going to cause like a slight existential crisis in your life, and maybe make you hate humanity.
Yeah, exactly. But McCarthy, I love McCarthy's. This is hard to explain. I love his storytelling.
Yeah,
I find the actual mechanical way he writes, like without quotes. Like the way he decided, it'll be like run-on sentences, like for like what you think is a paragraph is one long sentence. Again, no quotes, so it's kind of hard to follow who's talking. You know, sometimes, or if this is talking, like is this like narrative or is this like dialogue? Like what am I looking at? I find it mechanically difficult to read. Like kind of like technically difficult.
He sort of like thought, okay, so William Faulkner's Sound and the Fury wasn't difficult enough. So
right. How do I just remove all the assists here? Like just make this, like make people really have to work to read this. Work to read some of the most horrifying imagery you're ever going to encounter in literature. Like
so you can get rewarded with just total existential dread.
With nightmares. Just like I still haven't gotten through Blood Meridian, which is I read was like infamously like one of his most disturbing books.
Yeah, it's a beast.
Yeah, and I've started it I think like 3 times, and like I'm not in the right headspace to read this right now. You know, and I've set it down. I still haven't gotten through it. But the one last thing I would want to say about I'm geeking out over Cormac McCarthy. To me, he is Exhibit A in one of my firmest held beliefs. When it comes to being a storyteller, execution is king. Like, you can have the dumbest, simplest story, but if you're a master...
Oh, no! We lost Gary again. See, this was the Men in Black getting rid of Gary because he was talking about Cormac McCarthy. And I don't know if I've told you guys about this, but that is... part of the alien conspiracy out there as well. Oh no. Okay, there's Gary. Oh my gosh, there's 2 Gary Hodges. Wait. I'm gonna put you on and see if it keeps your frozen image next to you.
Doppelganger.
That happened last time too.
That's what happened, yeah. I wouldn't think the government would care about me talking about Cormac McCarthy. But
I just realized I have this like obnoxious banner.
Well, I don't think it was there, but I didn't notice it before because it was your I don't know.
Okay, so are you gonna say anything about the alien doppelganger who's just appeared?
I think it'd be best if we just don't talk about it. I think. Okay.
So here's a question, just on a moral level, since we're talking about Cormac McCarthy.
Yes.
Was that just a version of you that was just murdered, and you are a replica of that person with all of your memories and all of your experiences, and you just killed it by taking it off the stream?
That makes me think of The Prestige.
Yeah.
You see that one? The Christopher Nolan.
Oh, yeah. And that's an old ethics class thing, too. It was like the question of, like, if there was like a replica, or do androids dream of electric sheep, like that kind of thing. Yeah. Yeah. I love that. Why are ethics things so fun but so fruitless?
I last year I listened to an audiobook. I'm trying to remember the name of it now. I think it's I can pull it up in my my Audible. If you are into ethics and philosophical dilemmas and all of that,
I am.
And it's great as an audiobook. The author narrates it. It's phenomenal. And for like 2 weeks, all I wanted to talk about with people was weird ethical and philosophical dilemmas.
Isn't that a dilemma? I think that should be considered an ethical and philosophical dilemma. If you're a person who enjoys talking about that kind of stuff and isn't like claiming to be like a genius or an expert on it, like finding people to talk about is an ethical and philosophical debate.
It's hard. Who are you going to put through this conversation? So the book the title is just simply Justice. The author is Michael J. Sandel, Sandel. I cannot recommend it highly enough. I was replaying chapters, not because I wasn't following, but because like, wait, I just want to sit in that idea a little bit longer. Like I want to listen to his explanation a little bit more. And he'll start with like, he starts with basic things like the trolley problem that a lot of people are familiar with and stuff like that. But it starts to get very, very deep and very complicated and very interesting. And so much of the stuff where you're just sitting there, it's like, I thought, like, if you had asked me 10 minutes ago where I'd fall on this idea, this issue, this question, I would have a ready answer. But now that he's kind of talked it through a little bit, now I have no idea what to think. I don't know what's right. I don't know what's wrong. I don't know how I feel anymore. I'm confused. It's, you know, it's way more complicated than I thought. And I kind of love that feeling.
Yeah. That is a good feeling. All right. I just realized I had a moment of zoning out, and it's because this is at hour 2. And so I need to take like a 20-second break. If you guys want to stick around, you are welcome to. If you need to bail, you're welcome to as well. So it's a potential out.
I'm probably going to hang out like maybe another half hour, if that's all right.
That sounds about right for me. That's probably what I've got left in my system too.
I can still hang out.
Cool. All right.
I see Corey. Corey, are you still in the chat?
Corey's still here?
That is true, because if he's still in the chat, then he should hop on stream. But
curious.
Yeah. All right. I'll be shortly back.
Okay.
I'll show Gary what I was working on. So I was doing
doing a little fan art version of 1975.
Yeah, so I did the girl first. I could get the base, and then I did the dino version.
Whoa! Oh, that's right. What we talked about. Like, what about a dinosaur with a towel?
Yeah.
There's a just for behind the scenes trivia. When I was working on the cover for that, the pulp cover, I happened to know basically like a life drawing model. And I asked her like, hey, you know, how much would it be just for you to come over and do like some kind of pulp cover poses, you know, for me, just to get like some reference images.
Yeah.
And I was like, it'd probably be like, you know, a dozen pictures. It'd probably be the easiest money you've ever made. It'll probably be 15 or 20 minutes. I showed her my sketches, like what this is what I have in mind. She's way into like horror movies and like Scream Queens and like, you know, pulp and like all that kind of stuff. So she was totally into it. She's like, oh no, I want to do that. I want to do that. And it was like, cool. And she charged me almost nothing. It was great. And I remember she came over we only kind of knew each other. She was like a friend of a friend. She showed up at my place because this was like this weird thing. It's like if you're hiring a model to take pictures of for reference, who's going to be scantily clad, like where do you do that? And you're very aware of the fact it's like kind of weird, like, you know, she doesn't know me that well. I'm just a single dude, like a guy. Like, I'm having her come to my apartment, you know, like, and it's like, what do you say? Like, I promise I'm not a creep. I promise this is all in the up and up, and you know, you do your best. But anyway, she showed up, but she showed up wisely with her boyfriend, which I thought like, oh, perfect, good. Like then she'll feel better, like she'll be more comfortable. But now I was a little uncomfortable because she's like, all right, well, what do you need me wearing for this? And I'm like, your boyfriend's sitting right there on my couch. And I'm like, well, like however little you're comfortable with, you don't actually have to be naked, but it's so weird. Like her boyfriend's right there. And I'm like saying like, I don't know, could you like, I guess bra and panties is fine. It was very weird. But anyway, she was great. She was very into it. She got a free comic out of it. She charged me almost nothing. And it was a lot of fun. And I always recommend working with live models when you can. It's a great experience as an artist.
Cool.
Yeah, dude.
I've been going with this model.
There you go.
Nice. I think live models are the way to go, though. Like when it comes to art, like as much reference as you can use, you should use.
Yeah, 100%. Well, especially like the look I've decided to go with B versus M. It's not comic booky; it's a little more realistic. So
yeah,
if I was doing things, the Marvel way or whatever, maybe I'd want references just for like gross proportions and like postures and things. But maybe I wouldn't need it so much for like the little facial things, like I could sort of fib. But with the look I'm going with, like it really helps to have a person to look at for reference, even if they're not going to look anything like that. Just to kind of get you in the zone.
Yeah, and it brings the humanity across because I think a huge thing in comics is like expressions, and it's like if you fail at the expression, like you can almost fudge a lot of things like on a comic, but like if you during a dialogue sequence are screwing up the expressions, like it feels pretty stiff and it's hard to relate to. I mean, just people's hand movements as they're talking. I don't know, like there is definitely an advantage to like having that stuff acted out. I think it's why Disney did that. I think it's why, like, yeah, I definitely think it's the way to go if you can.
For sure. And I mean, I know I've had the experience of reading a comic and it's just like there's this one panel where the face looks just a little derpy. And, it just immediately takes you out of it, where you look and it's like, wow, that didn't work. And you might recover and move on.
Yeah.
And it's fine. But like you stop and like, oh, they didn't expect that drawing to be that big or something.
Yeah, for sure. No, that makes perfect sense. Let's see here. Okay. Speaking of derpy faces, working on roughs. So I also think it's just one of those things of like half of your job as an artist is like observation. And so like it's a good practice in that too, to like have like take life drawing classes, like have, references that you observe. And yeah, like definitely like if you're doing like thumbnails or roughs or whatever, go for it, go to town. But like, yeah, like I think I don't know, take advantage of the plethora of people out there. And sometimes that means, if you're a broke artist, you just call friends,
That's usually, I mean, I've done both. I've hired and with my friends, usually the deal is when we're done, I'll take you to lunch or dinner, depending on what time it is. And I'll give you a credit in the comic and I'll give you a free issue, which is, I mean, it's a smoking deal for me, like it's great. But it's almost like finding people to proofread your work. If you're finding the right people to be a reference, they're excited to do it. That's sort of like, I mean, and I can imagine, like, if someone came to me and was like, I need someone, I'm doing an indie comic and, I think you could look kind of sort of like a character I've come up with. Would you be willing to sit with me for an hour and just like do different faces and poses and just let me gather up some pictures? That's to me at least, and like the people I try to find, that feels like just a funny once in a lifetime thing. It's like, yeah, I would like to be able to say I did that once.
Yeah.
Like that sounds fun. Sure. You're going to buy me a burger too? Yeah, you bet. Why not? Like that sounds fun.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I'm just doing a voice, but it's like I am so flattered to be a part of like a Jim Lujan cartoon.
That is pretty cool.
And it's so nerdy because it's like, we've been friends for a while, but it's like just, it wasn't even something I had thought to like ask to do or anything. I just like, he asked me to do it. And I was like, oh, dude, like that's pretty cool. Because I really like his work. And so like just to have like a piece of something in it, like to be able to actually participate in it is really cool. Because he cracks me up.
And I'm not asking, but like, I don't know. Like, would you even need to be compensated to do that? Like, it's just, because it's just like a fun, like, I'll do that. So,
yeah, I mean, I'm just like geeked out by it. It's just worth the laugh to like hear like my voice somehow synced up to like his stuff.
I would I'd be the same. I'd be like, yeah, sign me up, whatever. Just tell me when. And I think
which I'm glad to hear because you're going to be basically the main character in my next comic, and I'm not going to compensate you, but I will buy you a burger. So
hey, you know what? Sure, why not? I sat in for I had to do. I was the old man in black in '75. I sat in for all that. So and there's even somewhere deep in my Instagram. I wanted to get the scale right. So I went and found out how big the steering wheel is, like the diameter of it, of the Dodge they're driving. And cut out foam core, like a foam core ring for the steering wheel. And so when I was doing selfies of myself, like I'm holding this ring, so I know like where my hands are. So it would match when I draw the steering wheel later, It was almost like doing green screen or something. It's like, I think, okay, where would my hands have to be? And so there's pictures of, like I have probably dozens of pictures of me pretending to drive with this foam core steering wheel just to get the lines right, just to get get my hands right.
Yep. I think that is all good. Like, yeah, I don't know. I think the kind of folks who are critical of that sort of thing are probably just not super seasoned at it. I don't know if that makes sense.
No, like 100%. Or, and this is a technical term, gatekeeping assholes. Like I mean, I don't know. It's got to be one of those two things. That's what I always assume. It's either like you're a very young artist, like very inexperienced artist, or you just want to be able to say like, well, I only, I've said this before, draw from my formidable imagination, and I only use charcoal I made in my own kiln, and I only paint on canvas I stretched myself. Like I mean, it's this silly kind of like bully for you, like.
Yeah, and I mean, if you did honestly make your own charcoal and stuff, cool, but
like, so what? I mean,
is that suddenly a rule for everyone? Like,
right. Well, and it's arbitrary lines. It's like weird called shots.
Yeah.
Like, because the thing I've always said is like, do you use a straight edge? Like, is that not cheat? Where are you drawing the line between cheating, quote unquote, and not cheating? And like, a friend of mine, Scott Lost, like every time he hears like, oh, that's cheating, he's like, who's keeping score? Like, what is the game? Like, what? I don't like, it's just, and I think that you need to start cultivating. I think it's an easy thing, especially if you're a little insecure, to like let too much of that stuff in, like you need to be like, no, it's as long as you're not stealing work, you're fine.
Yeah.
that's my line. Don't steal work. But otherwise, like, find your method. I don't care.
Yeah. Do whatever you need to do to make the art you need to make.
Yeah. Yeah. Is it turning out the way you wanted it to turn out? Okay, and you're not stealing? Cool. Like that's, I'm happy. I'm satisfied. I'm not going to try to revoke your artist card. So,
like I use a lot of Scott Circlin's poses in his turnaround. So at first, when I was doing a lot of my stuff, I would use that a lot, and then when I started to like not rely on it, that's when I would say like, hey, I did this with no reference because I was able to get my hand trained, and right away people were telling me, no, you need to use reference. Like, no, okay, I have been using reference. now it's like coming a little bit more natural that I don't need to like rely on this
You're
one
getting
pose
it.
all the time. So,
And that's the funny thing is like, I think, in my opinion, less experienced artists are the ones who especially need to be using reference. To do what you're saying, to kind of build that sensitivity to like, that's what an arm looks like. That's how it bends. That's how eyes look when they squint versus they're wide. That's where someone's pupils are when they're angry versus when they're, like you start noticing, you build that vocabulary in your head.
Yeah, and you got to do a crap load of life drawing. Like
so much.
Like don't stop life drawing, especially early on. Yeah.
I took a life drawing class every year in college and about every 2 to 3 years ever since, because I feel like I've said this a million times. I'm evangelical when it comes to life drawing. If you can only take one art class, take life drawing and keep taking it. Take it over and over and over again. You'll never get too much life drawing in your brain. Like because it's just it's a bottomless pit of expertise. Like you're never going to get to the point. It's like, I now completely understand any human figure, any gender, any weight, any age, and any position from my brain. Like that's not a thing. Any facial expression. I can, like, if you just show me a face right now, I will draw every possible emotional reaction in the face, again, from my mind. Like, it's a weird carnival trick. Like, that's not a thing. You need to be seeing examples.
Yep. Unless you're Winsor McKay, and then I guess you're just some weird
unless
genius.
Unless you're a crazy savant, which they're out there. But odds are, I hate to break it to you, not you, any of you on the camera, anybody out there watching, you're probably not. You're like, and I'm not. Most of us aren't. So like, most of us have to work.
The other thing is like, even McKay, it's like, reading that biography of him and stuff, it's like he spent a crap load of time drawing from observation.
Yes.
He just had a really good like memory bank for those observations. And I will say like, like my wife is like way better at drawing from memory than I am. And so for her, like she can do pretty damn good drawings just with like no reference whatsoever. And then if she adds reference, it's just that much better. But she has a much better like visual imagination. And that exists. I mean, that definitely exists. But a lot of that's practice too, where it's like she practiced cartooning a lot. She practiced, and she has a better visual memory. So it's like but that's even a muscle you build, right? By like drawing a lot. So it's, 100%. I will say I've had to tell people to use references more than people to not use references.
Right.
Like in teaching art classes and stuff, like it was more common that I would be like, yeah, okay, you need to actually get references rather than the other.
100%.
Yeah.
It's very infrequent that I'm looking at something and I'm thinking it's very referencey. Like I'm looking at it and I feel like I think you're leaning too hard on whatever you were looking at. And now you should try to take off the training wheels a little bit and push, and add some spice to this.
Yeah.
But way more often it's looking at it and it's like, what is going on with your hands?
Yep.
Please like sit with your, and that was, I in the day and age of phones, like there's almost no excuse. You should be able to be doing selfies of yourself anytime you're running into trouble. And it sounds like a joke, but I seriously mean it. Like anyone who's having trouble with hands, you have two right now, right in front of you that you can pose in any way you want and photograph from any angle you want. There's kind of no excuse, like you should be able to do this.
Yeah, for sure, dude. Oh man. All right, so I have to call it because it's like,
okay.
I literally was like, when I started this stream too, I was realizing I have this flaw of like, I think it's like the autist in me, but it's like I have to finish, and you know, that can cause burnout because it's like if I push this any further, I'm probably gonna, you know, burn out tomorrow. And what would be better is to be able to do a live stream tomorrow too.
There you go. Well, and for what it's worth, Tarantino, his writing trick is to always stop before he has to at the end of each day, where he knows exactly where he's going next. So you kind of you come a little more shot out of the cannon the next day because you know where you were going, you know what you were trying to do. You don't want to finish everything and then be like, all right, I don't know what I'm doing tomorrow. I'll figure it out tomorrow. That's a bad move, supposedly. So
that's pretty smart. I will say, exciting little note. I have this. I'm gonna just for sound effects.
Nice.
And then this, and the whole thing's thumbnailed and rough penciled.
Nice.
So for like over 130 pages, which is, you know, it took me forever, but I'm getting there. So, okay. Gary, where can everybody find your work and this book that you speak of?
You know, you can find links to everything at my Instagram, which is at Dinosaurs versus Marsbots, Dinosaurs vs Marsbots, all one word. You can also search for my name here on, here on YouTube. I'm looking at SteamYard and I got distracted. Yeah, or StreamYard. Search for my name. You'll know the icon. You'll know it's me because it's a Tyrannosaur chomping alien. So.
Yes.
Oh, hey, Ronnie, showing up.
I love it. Ronnie, probably stopping by before work. It's good seeing you, man. Actually, I will mention that. You guys should check out Ronnie Gunter's
yes,
as well.
That's right. He's got his,
up on Tapas, right? So, so go check that out. Crimson Owl Comics on YouTube as well. And then, Frank, where can everybody check out your stuff?
Well, you can find me on Salazar Art Nation on my YouTube channel, also on the same name on my Instagram, and I have a link tree in my bio that takes you to all my other places. I also have a Ko-fi account, so if you want to support what I do, you can do that there. And that's pretty much it. Right now, I was just listening for most of the conversation, but I was doing a little fan art for Gary, which I'll be posting up on Instagram as soon as we log out. So
I can't wait.
And I was also using reference.
Very nice. Very
love
it. Drawing from life.
Sweet. All right. Well, you guys know where to find me. If you haven't yet, pick up 2 stories. It's like absurdly low in price on Amazon right now.
Smoking deal on Amazon. It's kind of ridiculous.
Yeah,
the value is crazy.
I'm baffled by it because it's lower than I pay for author copies from my publisher. So I'm like, what's going on with this?
I was curious how that even works. Like, it feels like they're almost giving it away, which, you know, it's
I was
great opportunity if you haven't bought it
yet. Yeah, it is strange. Okay.
You can only buy one at a time, though.
So maybe that's the catch. I don't know.
I tried to be like how much it would be if I bought 2. And they will only let me just do one. Like, all right, it's fine. I already have a copy anyway.
Okay.
I guess that ruins my plan of buying 10 and marking them up and selling them like on the marketplace. Just cleaning them out.
It's true. You'd need a posse of like 10 comic flippers to do it. All right. Well, thanks guys for hanging out with me and working on stuff and talking comics with me. It's always a pleasure. And I will probably see you guys, or whoever shows up, later tonight. So
tonight would be tonight. Yeah. Who's the guest?
Yeah.
What's
Oh, there is no Artcaster, so I'm literally just gonna probably be doing a live stream. So
Okay, cool.
We're skipping this week, and then next week's will actually be Jim Lujan which is pretty
cool.
So we're going to talk about titles for stories and projects, which I think is actually pretty cool because he does come up with good titles.
Yeah, I'm curious about that because I struggle between Dinosaurs versus Marsbots and D versus M.
Yeah, I didn't struggle at all. I come up with like non-generic titles, like 2 stories. I'm joking.
There you go. Yeah.
But yeah. All right. Thank you guys so much for hanging, and I will see you later tonight. Bye.
Bye.